What's up, guys? Today we're talking about just how fucking badass Linda Hamilton is. And maybe we'll talk about some other stuff too. Hello friends, I'm Tyler, welcome back to my channel, and as I said, this is essentially a video about how fucking badass Linda Hamilton is. Yes, I'm of course talking about Terminator Dark Fate. We're gonna start this off with do things how I try to do them for my movie reviews, and go with a non-spoiler section first. I don't think that it's a spoiler to say that Linda Hamilton is badass. You see that first trailer, then you immediately know and understand, but still can't quite get across just how badass she is, because as someone that grew up with T2, she was the peak form of like, oh yeah, that's a badass woman. And so seeing her return almost 30 years later to that role, and well over 30 after the first Terminator, but I feel like the characters of Sarah Connor and like T1 and T2 are very, very different in a lot of ways. I don't think that's a controversial thing, but this character here, obviously it's also different from T2, but it's more similar to T2, and God, she just knocks it out of the park. It's probably also a combination of her cool like attire and her haircut, just everything, all the pieces that they put together, just fucking badass. It's one of those things where I'm like, I have a feeling that like women over the age of 50 are going to start wearing this hairstyle a lot more, because yeah, she just looks fucking awesome in it. I've just always loved her acting, and the film even opens up with her iconic T2, like her getting interviewed and doing her like flip out thing. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, let's get into something that's other than Linda Hamilton. Get for those people that want to actually hear something about the movie. And yeah, let's do that. Speaking of badasses, Mackenzie Davis. If you've seen the trailer, then you've seen that she's like an augmented human, so she's like half Terminator, half human. It is one of the most interesting new aspects of this, I would say series, but the film didn't do very well, so I think this might be the only one we're getting. Which, a little bit of an aside, this is now the third time in this Terminator series that they've started up with a film with plans to go further, and then it doesn't go further. It sucks, because there's a lot to like about this movie. And I mean, it's not written in stone yet. We could still get a sequel, but who knows. But yeah, Mackenzie Davis is just so cool in this. She is the new Sarah Connor in so many ways, unlike who they have as the new Sarah Connor. Anytime that Linda Hamilton and Mackenzie Davis are on the screen, that's when the film's at its best, and it drags when they're not on screen. But thankfully they're on screen a lot, so it works out pretty well. And another thing I really liked about this is the connection with the first two films. This does the same thing that Halloween 2018 did last year, where it skips over most of the sequels, or well, that one just skipped over all the sequels. This one just treats the first film and Terminator 2 as canon. So I really liked that, especially once Genesis happened and they just added more and more to it where it started getting a little convoluted. So I'm glad that they kind of brought it back to the basics while still doing interesting things with it. Unlike the other films in the series, I really like what they did with Arnold in this. What's his designation? I know he's a T-800, but I think he's like T-101. I really like what they did with him because it feels unique while still feeling Terminator-like. It kind of posits an interesting question that I won't get into since this is the non-spoiler section. But yeah, he just does a really great job, and it's probably his best performance across all the Terminator films, just because there's a conflicting humanity there without having humanity. It's confusing a little bit. It's confusing to say without saying spoilers, so yeah, that's why. My final little point for the non-spoiler section, Gabriel Luna is the new Terminator, does a fucking awesome job. He is essentially, because I think that they really struggle with that in some of these films, and in this one, I don't know, he nails it because he's very Robert Patrick-like. There's like two instances where I think that some lines that he says, I'm like, oh, that's not very Terminator-like, but it still works. Like, I still enjoyed it because he's still like cold and just, he's like a goddamn shark. Like, I can't even, there's no better way to describe it. and I just really, really enjoyed what he did with the role. He brought something new that I wasn't expecting, which is nice. And his character in general was really cool because it's kind of combining the T800 and the T1000, where he can like, the liquid metal can separate from the exoskeleton. So that's really cool because you just get some really interesting like scenarios where, you know, you think it's only one Terminator and then he can split off. So it just makes the threat higher, and I really enjoyed that. And yeah, the film overall does a good job. The tone is a little off, but if you like Terminator, I can't imagine why you would dislike this film. The action scenes, they're not like anything mind-blowing, but they're serviceable. They do the job. Yeah, if you're a Terminator fan, you definitely need to check this one out, and do it soon so that studios can see that people want to see this, because it was #1 at the box office, but it's still considered a pretty big disappointment, which sucks because I think it's really, really good. It's not amazing. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars out of 5 on my Letterboxd. So just to give you like a range as to where it's at. It's not perfect. It's not amazing, but it's very, very good. But yeah, let's get into the spoiler section because that's where all the fun is. Now, I feel like this can't be said enough, but Mackenzie Davis's like non-Terminator Terminator is so cool. I love the concept that Terminators are, if once they're around you, you only have X amount of time to actually beat them. Otherwise, you're pretty much dead. So they operate on the concept of going in short bursts. You're likely dead if you get past the short burst of energy anyway. Once she runs out of energy, she starts like seizing up and needs this medication. And I just thought that was really interesting because usually it's just like the Terminator is invincible. They have like damn near no weakness at all. So I like that they did that like melding of the two because, again, just retreading old ground wouldn't have worked quite as well in this situation. I think that paying homage to stuff certainly works well, and I think that there's some things in this film that probably could have benefited from a little bit more catering to the usual Terminator universe. One thing in particular is I'm really not a fan of the like Mexico setting, which I get that Mexico is a pretty prominent part of Terminator just in terms of the endings. Obviously the ending of the first Terminator is her going down to Mexico, and then the second one that's where she gets her supplies because that's where she met the people down in Mexico. They're very brief scenes and it's more just like a portion of the film. This one, it's almost the entire thing in Mexico, which just gets old because it's not the scenery that we come to expect from a Terminator film. Wanting to see more metropolis looking places with, you know, car chases through a more metropolis area. Instead, it's in Mexico, so it's like practically looks like post-apocalyptic world. So there's not that juxtaposition, which sucks. And I think is honestly one of the main problems with the film. They should have never set it in Mexico. I don't know, maybe there's some Mexican that's watching this that's like, oh, I thought that was really relatable and really enjoyed it, which is perfectly fine. That's great that you enjoyed it. But for me, I thought that it was not Terminator-like because that's usually something that is only a portion of it. So it could have just been them trying to, you know, just try new things, but I think it changed the visual style too much. And so you don't really have those like cool blues, which I know I associate with a Terminator film, in particular Terminator 2. And so the color palette is just very brown throughout the film. That's just unfortunate because I feel like more akin to like Terminator Salvation than to the James Cameron films. So that aspect really sucks. Another thing that I'm not a fan of is the new Sarah Connor. Danny, I think her name is. She's extremely forgettable. She's not a very good actress. I mean, she's not a bad actress. She just doesn't have that special something. And I found like every scene that she was in just dragged a bit. Thankfully, Mackenzie Davis and Linda Hamilton were usually in the scenes with her, but when they weren't, like, it was just like, let's get this going because this is super boring. And then they have like a little twist where you're thinking she's the new Sarah Connor in terms of she's the person that's going to give birth to the savior. They do a little twist at the end where it's like, no, she actually is the one that's going to save everyone, which I don't know. I think it could have worked better with a better actress. I just didn't find it very believable. She doesn't have the strength that Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor has. That's unfortunate because I know they were trying to go for like an unknown, despite the fact that this lady's in like a bunch of like Telemundo stuff, like in very much a working actress. So maybe they should have gone a little more unknown and went for someone that actually like charismatic and has that strength, but as is, it really didn't work. Like, which sucks because I really wanted it to work. Speaking of which, her brother, played by Diego Boneta, he's great in Scream Queens. When it was announced, I was like, oh, that's cool, it's great that he's in it. Noticed him in the trailer and then didn't really see much of him, so I'm like, wait, is he die quickly? And yeah, he's barely in the fucking movie. Why cast him for that? Maybe, I don't know, I just thought that was odd, especially because it could have just been like a lesser role. Like, it didn't have to be Diego Boneta, so it was just odd. Maybe they did that specifically because then you're thinking he's gonna be around longer, so then when he does die, you're like, oh damn. Because I'll even admit, when the thing went into his side, I was like, oh, so he's gonna be injured now. Mackenzie Davis's character pulls Danny out of the truck before it gets hit, and fuck it just explodes in a ball of fire. I'm like, oh, I guess he's not in the movie anymore. I'm really curious because it came out right before the film's release that James Cameron and Tim Miller had some like disagreements in like the post-production process. I wondered going into it, I was like, James Cameron's a crotchety old man. I'm sure Tim Miller was fighting for the right things. And after seeing the movie, I'm like, oh, this seems very Tim Miller. There's a line that Diego Luna's Terminator says that just goes on a little too long for him, like making a clever remark. Where I'm like, Terminator wouldn't do that. So I could see Cameron be thinking the same way. Honestly, the action is where the problems come in because it's very bland. It's just too much CGI, way too much CGI. They should have gone a lot more practical with these things. It has that like Deadpool floaty CGI look to it, which I love Deadpool. It works in Deadpool. It does not work in a grounded Terminator movie. As much as I liked this movie, this is also the movie that kind of made me go, I don't think I'm a big Tim Miller fan, which sucks because obviously he got Linda Hamilton back. Speaking of which, he also got Edward Furlong back. The opening scene of the movie, where it takes place shortly after Terminator 2, John and Sarah are down in some tropical area. I don't think they specifically say, I assume Mexico somewhere. Tropical area, and Terminator comes up from the beach and kills John. They did like a de-aging thing on Hamilton and John, which the one on Hamilton looks fucking amazing. It looks so good. The one on John Connor, like on Edward Furlong, doesn't work quite as well. Maybe I just need to see the film again, but when I saw it, I was like, ooh, that almost looks like a bad double. Not that they even took like his face, because I know they even said that he's reprising his role, so they definitely got permission to use his likeness and stuff. So it was odd that it didn't look that good, but also Arnold didn't look the greatest. They have a lot of reference points with Arnold around like for that time, specifically from that movie, so it was weird how different it looked. Meanwhile, Linda Hamilton looked fucking spot on, looked great. It was weird to see, in fact. So odd to see her from fucking almost 30 years ago, but it was cool. And I liked that they did that because I saw someone else bring up this point, so I can't say it's 100% me. I agree with the fact that now that Skynet's down, John Connor doesn't really he went from like being the most important person in the world to essentially nothing. So anywhere that character goes from there on out is going to be sad for the audience to see. I completely agree with the decision to kill him off, and it makes sense to me. I just thought it made a lot of sense, and I thought it was really well done. It gives Sarah a big reason for still hunting down all the Terminators, and obviously it gives a good reason for keeping like a Terminator in the picture. Because obviously you know that Terminator, the T-800, is around because it killed John. I thought it was really cool, and I don't think I don't know. I saw headlines saying it was controversial, but I don't think people themselves are saying it's super controversial. I think it's just a headline thing of just trying to get people to click, but I still really enjoyed it. One last thing that I have to discuss, I love how close the Terminator gets to like killing Danny. The Terminator usually isn't in super close proximity of its target, because if that happens, target's usually dead. But in this, there was like a lot of cool close calls, and I felt that the threat was definitely up there, especially once like Diego Boneta's character was killed, because you're like, oh, I wonder how this is gonna go now. If anything, I was like almost expecting them to off Sarah Connor in like a weird way out of nowhere, but I love what they ended up doing with her. I wish that the end set piece was just a little grander, because it just felt very much like a video game, and there didn't really feel like much stakes for a third act, which is like lame. There needed to be just something to push things forward a little better, because as is, it just didn't really move that well. Like the pacing was a little off, but I feel like the spoiler section was a lot of bashing, but I just had to discuss my problems, because again, if it's only a 3.5 out of 5 stars, there are some issues and I wanted to address those. I don't think that it's enough to completely ruin the movie, and I still really liked it, liked where it went, and honestly, it provided for me my favorite trailer of the year, because I loved that first trailer. So good. Yeah, that's really all. Hope that you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video. Hey friends, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and check out this video that YouTube thinks that you would like.